spiritual gathering, the divine insight given to him by the Almighty. Other people also started having divine visions of the new world as Tata led him meditate. Day by day, the gathering grew bigger and famous by the name of Om Mandali. From this point onward, Tata was given the name Brahma Baba. The trust was made of 8 women. Brahma Baba donated all his wealth to that trust. While many people supported this new satsang, there were those too who opposed. Many forced their relatives to stop going. They took it outside the compound. They hired assassins to target him. Even they set fire to the satsang building. But these antisocial elements were unable to stop this divine. For 14 years, with grace of the Almighty, he gave spiritual training to a group of 350 people. In 1950, Om Mandali shifted from Karachi to Mount Abu in India. The organization was renamed to Prajapata Brahma Kumari Ishwarya Vishwa Vidyalaya. Brahma Baba inspired all the students to spread God's message throughout India and the world. Religious women, young girls went alone to cities and started giving this scripture. And as the message spread across the whole country, it soon crossed the borders into foreign countries. At present, the Brahma Kumaris have thousands of centers in 140 countries. An organization that transforms lives without any discrimination of caste, religion, or country. Brahma Baba attained his Sampurna complete stage and left his body the 18th of January, 1969. The path of spiritual enlightenment shown by him is still followed by millions.
Today we're going to learn about the civil rights leader, Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr., best known for his nonviolent protests and speeches calling for equality for all people, was born on January 15, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia. He was the second of 3 children, born to a Baptist preacher. At the time, less than 70 years after slavery was made illegal in the United States, things were still hard for Black Americans. Many people were unhappy when slavery was ended, and lawmakers in some places, especially southern states, made special rules to keep white people and Black people apart. People of different races had to use different drinking fountains, different bathrooms, and even had to go to different schools. The Supreme Court ruled that it was legal as long as things were separate but equal. This separation between people of different colors was called segregation. This was the atmosphere that young Martin Luther King grew up in. He attended a segregated school, where he did so well that he was able to skip 2 grades and graduate at the age of 15. Shortly after graduating, he began studying at Morehouse College, and he graduated with a degree in sociology in 1948. He had decided to become a minister like his father, and so he enrolled in a seminary to study religion. In 1951, Martin Luther King Jr. graduated from the seminary, the top in his class. On June 18, 1953, King married Coretta Scott, with whom he would have 4 children. He continued his education by studying for his doctorate at Boston College, and in 1954 he became the pastor of a Baptist church in Montgomery, Alabama. In 1955, he received his PhD when he was only 25 years old. In December of 1955, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus to a white man, for which she was arrested and spent the night in jail. Martin Luther King and other civil rights leaders organized a boycott of the bus system. This meant that the people who wanted things to change would stop riding the bus. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted over a year, and so many people refused to ride the buses that the bus companies lost a lot of money. In December of 1956, the Supreme Court ruled that segregated buses were unconstitutional. This was a major victory for the civil rights movement, and it proved that peaceful methods could create change. However, many people were upset by the changes that were happening, and Martin Luther King was nationally recognized after his part in the bus boycott. He was jailed over 20 times, stabbed, his house was bombed, and he was frequently threatened, but he never stopped calling for equality. Between 1957 and 1968, King worked tirelessly to promote civil rights. He traveled all over, giving thousands of speeches, writing 5 books and many articles. His hard work and speaking ability earned him respect and a personal meeting with President John F. Kennedy. Of all his speeches, his most memorable was the I Have a Dream speech, delivered on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963 to a listening crowd of 250,000 people.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
That year, Martin Luther King was named Time magazine's Man of the Year, and in 1964 he received the Nobel Peace Prize. Around the same time, partially as a result of his efforts, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act, which made segregation and discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin illegal. King gave his final speech on April 3rd, 1968.
And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
The next day, while he was standing on his hotel balcony, Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and killed. He was 39 years old. In 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill creating a national holiday to remember King's life and accomplishments. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is celebrated on the 3rd Monday every January in honor of the man whose dream of peace and equality helped change a nation. I hope you enjoyed learning about Martin Luther King Jr. today. Goodbye till next time.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. And who can say if you love
Good evening and Om Shanti. We have a wonderful, wonderful crowd here on a cold night. How many of you are here for the first time with us at Harmony House? Very nice, very nice. Good to see everyone. And hello to the Zoom people. You know, we have at least as many on Zoom these days, especially when the weather is cold. So good of you to come. But I'd like to invite two more people to sit in the front row. And they are Martin Luther King and Brahma Baba. You've learned a lot in the past few minutes if you forgot your history lesson from school. These are men who have left us a legacy. Am I the only one in the room that can feel them here with us this evening? It's a beautiful, beautiful evening to share with so many people. So we have two men that had a lot of courage that we're going to talk about tonight. And our theme for the month is a new way forward. Certainly, Martin Luther King formed a new way forward, and so did Brahma Baba. We have gone from a handful of young women that he started the Brahma Kumaris with 90 years ago to a few million around the world and centers around the world. So they didn't know what they were going to do any more than I think Martin Luther King had a vision of what would happen after Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white person on that bus. And I certainly don't think the boycotters, you know, the company, the bus company knew that the boycott of buses would come on, with an M. Where was it? Montgomery. Thank you so much. Good. You just sit right there, okay? Whenever you see me up here. Okay, I'm getting old, you know. That would last a whole year and they would lose so much money. So if you're wondering what this topic tonight, time itself, is ready for change, it's only the future. It's only the time that can tell us where to go or where we're going, even when we're in a world where we're doubting that we can ever recover. So where is the recovery? Well, the Brahmins have a secret here. The recovery is not something you look to learn. It's in your heart. It's in your own heart. It's in your intellect that's attached to the heart. And we have a way of taking adverse situations and turning them into gold. Think about September 11th, the song that you just heard by Enya. That song was given a new life, a rebirth at 9/11. And what did, if you're as old as I am, or maybe a little bit younger, you remember 9/11? My goodness, it's 24 years ago. What happened that caused, that reminded us that we're a loving human race? My son and his wife were down there by the World Trade Center ministering. My son is a doc, ministering to very few people because many didn't live, and giving out sandwiches. And we all, can you remember, can you close your eyes and just remember that ebullient feeling of belonging to an entire loving feeling with humanity because we were attacked. And sometimes I've learned just in my day-to-day living that sometimes these little attacks wind up producing great strength. I always say if all Superman had to do was cross little old ladies, he wouldn't know he was super. So here we like to view hardship as an invitation to grow. The song is quite beautiful, and I think that I just want to give you one quote each from both gentlemen that are sitting here in the front row. Use your imagination. Martin Luther King said, I want you to know that if MLK, myself, had never been born, this movement would have taken place. I just happened to be here. You know, there comes a time when time itself is ready for change. And there's our theme tonight. That time has come in Montgomery. And I had nothing to do with it. January 3rd, 1956. Okay. And our Brahma Baba, we kind of combed the readings that we do in the morning. And he spoke to his students. And one of the things he said was, and I want to start with this, see if you can relate. Souls of the world are wondering if there will ever be peace. How will it be? When will it be? There is no hope of it visible. Will it really happen? The present time is known as the time of transformation. According to the present time, transformation is definitely taking place at every moment in those who have become instruments. And on this basis, time too is going through a change. Time is a basis of transformation. Transformation is taking place at every moment in every way. That is in your thoughts, in your words, and in your deeds. This is known as transformation of the ascending stage. Those of you who come every week, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you who don't, get your butts here, okay? We do a lot of great stuff here. So without further ado, I would like to move on, and you won't hear much out of me from now on because I've got a lot of introducing to do. Brother Eric, are you ready for us? Okay. Okay. Good. Are we doing Sister Mohini? Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, so we're going to move around a little bit. Okay, I'd like to introduce, and he will be on video, Reverend Canon Lloyd S. Casson, who is Rector Emeritus of the Episcopal Church of St. Andrew and Matthew. He talks about the spiritual foundation of these two leaderships, sitting here, and how inner peace fuels societal transformation. Enjoy.
The first time I met Dr. King was really through a newsreel when I was attending a movie, of all places, in La Rochelle, France. Dr. King was on the newsreel. I'd never heard of Dr. King, but I was so surprised that this young African-American, not very physically large at all, larger than life though, and I thought I'm going to stay in touch with this guy. The next time I met Dr. King was a few years later. This would have been in 1963. I had graduated from college and became a part of a group of people going to the March on Washington in 1963 when Dr. King proclaimed his beautiful vision at the Lincoln Memorial. Something happened there that I even sometimes say that it was sacramental. We were experiencing something much more than the event itself. And that was when Dr. King made his marvelous speech, his I Have a Dream speech. First of all, the crowds of people who were there were from many races. They were from all over the United States of America. They were white, they were black, they were Asian, they were just from everywhere. We were trading lunch, sandwiches with one another. And the very vision that Dr. King was talking about, that's so out of reach, was in fact right there upon us. It's what I think Jesus always meant when he said, the kingdom of God is within you. That is to say, it's not some heavenly place, but when you actually experience the realities of that holiness, of that kingdom. And so we were actually present. And there was something about that moment. This is going to be the focus of my ministry. You know, I was a senior then, just ready to graduate from seminary. I realized that my ministry and my focus was going to be helping to bring the kingdom of God, as Dr. King was talking about it. That was another one of those moments of real change for me in Madhavan, because for the first time, I heard what it really means to consider yourself to be a soul and to remember God. And to remember God in the light of who you are as a soul. Now, I had not done the anatomy of a soul kind of thing that the Brahma Kumaris did. I was exposed to it at Madhavan, as a matter of fact. And I was just hearing it. And of course, I heard Baba speak and so on. And the idea of seeing myself and all human beings as souls, the essence of whom is love and peace. Not that we possess love or possess peace or light, but that's really who we are. I felt like Dr. King did on the last night of his life. He had a premonition, obviously, that this was it. This would have been in April of 1968, of course. He was addressing the crowd, and really his job was to get everybody ready to go out on this march. He said, "I have been at the mountaintop." He was referring to Moses going to the mountaintop and seeing the land that he was to lead the people into, or so that they be led into, but that he would not be able to go himself. And Dr. King said, "I've seen the mountain. I've been on the mountaintop. I've seen the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you," he said, but I've seen the promised land. And there was something about that experience in Madhavan that gave me that same feeling. And it's amazing that it was there that I had that feeling. And I've never left it. And it's one of the things that I most appreciate about the Brahma Kumaris is how you view human reality and who we really are. And Dr. King more than once gave expression to that very thing. I mean, he was not a BK, had probably never heard of the Brahma Kumaris at that time. But in sermons and in writings, even as early as a graduate school paper that I saw not too long ago, where he was actually struggling with the divinity of Jesus and how real that is. And he didn't want to try to defend it. His point was that Jesus was a manifestation of just what I've been talking about. That Jesus was acting out of his soulness in his entire life. And that's exactly the example of what that is intended for all of us. Thinking about what Dr. King taught, he felt that passivity was not the way to address, for example, bad public policy, injustice. He was not a recommender of wait, the time will come and eventually it'll all be all right. For him, it was passive resistance, and not passive waiting, but passive resistance. Having the courage to resist injustice, but having the courage to resist it by coming out of who you really are. That even loving the person or persons or group whose actions you're resisting without doing violence to them. It's my love for you, for me, for all of us, that I resist this unjust issue or whatever it is. I think of how Baba insists on remembering that you're a soul. Remember, just don't forget that. Of all things, keep that in mind, because that's the foundational point. And I think it's true. He saw the connection between injustice. Injustice anywhere is a precursor to injustice everywhere. And so, for example, he became very concerned about the war in Vietnam. And he got a lot of pushback from it, even from his disciples. There was that, Dr. King, you're meddling now. You're getting out of your lane. But he didn't see it that way. First of all, neither of them ran from the truth. And they had to, however they did it, they had to get to where they became. They had to see trouble, either their own or trouble around them. They were able to see the great dangers we are in by our unhappy divisions, as the prayer says. And I think they both did see that. I think they both were very obviously courageous. When I read about Brahma Baba and what he had to deal with people resisting him and the whole movement, and yet, you know, there you are, hundreds of you now, thousands of you now. I think, you know, that's obviously a starter. And I think Dr. King didn't stop saying what he felt needed to be said. He led. He carried on and see where it got him. So I think more than probably is yet known, probably more even in terms of spiritual truth. I think there was more. I'm sure that affected me. That I was hearing in Madhuban what I believed I'd been hearing, you know, at the March on Washington, for example. So, and I think that, you know, and I think there are others. You've heard me say this before, but I think that deep down inside, we all know this truth. And it's people like Dr. King and Brahma Baba who awaken us to what is real, to our real selves. Baba always talks about remember. In other words, it's not, I'm going to tell you something that you've never heard before, but remember this. Go deep down inside and you're going to know this is true. And that's where your strength is going to come from, because you're going to rediscover the power that is really yours as a result of that. And I you know, if I can be a Christian at this point, I think that was the power and the strength of Jesus of Nazareth. I mean, I think it was that the courage that people like that have to be, first of all, to be, the courage to be, and then the courage to I think a word I have not spoken yet, but it was submission. That's what's the same as their mission, their felt mission in the world was to be a part of this awakening. Otherwise, we would have never heard of the BKs. We wouldn't have heard of Christian faith as we heard of it, and we wouldn't have heard of Dr. King, except that this was their mission. But I think in the final analysis, it's when we see ourselves, all of us who inhabit this planet, and all the creatures of this planet, as being inextricably linked by the same love that is a source from which we all flow, and begin to live our lives that way, because that's the way we see it. And then it's not possible to divide and conquer. It's to be together and survive and be sustained. Mm-hmm. However that happens.
Okay, so he's sitting with the other two. Okay, thank you. We have a special treat now. She couldn't be here in person this evening. She has another class she does every evening. But the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris, some of you may know the name Mohini, Sister Mohini. Mohini Didi is a term of respect that we use. And she has a special message just for us this evening. Welcome, Sister Mohini Didi.
Om Shanti. January 18th is the day of remembrance. On this day, Brahma Baba ascended to his angelic stage. Brahma Baba had recognition of one God, the recognition of God as Father, Teacher, and Sadguru. And with that recognition, Baba decided to surrender everything for God's task. When Baba knew that God is establishing new golden aged world where everyone will be divine, there will be happiness, peace, love, and it will be the world which is full of happiness. So Baba then said, understanding of this transition from Iron Age to Golden Age, from Tamo Pradhan to Sato Pradhan, Baba decided for his own personal life, and also then he became the instrument where he decided whatever he has, whether it's buildings or whatever he had, to use it in God's task. Different buildings were used to build different, one for children, one for mothers, one for families. And so this is how really the whole organization, we also call it a sacred task, yagya, began. And when Baba gave, then he never said, I gave, I had all this. No, never, never. He never used word I. Because actually whatever he had was from his profit, his good business. But deeply within, even in path of bhakti, people believe that this fortune is given to us by God. So when I am giving, why should I think I am giving? We call it using it in worthwhile way so that our fortune can be created. But also, Baba's faith was unshakable. And whatever knowledge, ocean of knowledge gave, Baba really was one who became instrument that Shiv Baba then spoke through Brahma Baba. I had fortune to hear that also while speaking, Baba never said, I am going to tell you this. Baba tells us this. Baba says this. So knowledge also is being given by ocean of knowledge. I feel the success of Brahma Baba's life was not allowing I to emerge, but let God emerge as ocean of knowledge, as Father, even as Supreme Teacher. So that definitely was one of the main pillar of his success. And then how at the age when he was 60 plus, his thoughts, words, and actions, all the activities, not only based on purity, based on knowledge, but also to serve others. And of course, when he started sharing the message, many families decided to come together. A beautiful community was formed. Baba created everything as a family. Also then a yajna is created and family will support the yajna. Not only sacrifice vices, but also the task of giving message to everyone. So a very big family was created, then it became organization, then Baba used to call also it university. So for many years, really, Baba lived that life and led that life, was leader. His effort to be complete, to be perfect, whatever he did and showed example of perfection. So on this day of January 18th, Baba he ascended to his stage of perfection and he left his physical body, and we say that he became angelic. So I must say my respects, our respects to angelic Brahma Baba. It's really worth to read his history, life story. It inspires us in many different ways. So my love, my respects to angelic Brahma Baba. Om Shanti.
I'd like to tell you before I introduce our next two guests that Mohini Didi used to be here every Sunday before she became assistant administrator head. And she's one of the few people still alive who knew Brahma Baba before he left in 1969. As a matter of fact, she was a very shy young girl of about 16, maybe, Sister Anjani. And he said, you're going to go out of India and you're going to meet the whole world and you're going to give lectures. And they sent her first mission, I believe, was to lecture to teach 250 people. And they did it. They just did it. There was a light in them that told them they were doing the right thing. And this was their mission. Okay, so I would like to ask our next two speakers to come up on the stage. And Sister Gayatri, would you? And Reverend, where are you? There you are. Okay. Reverend Franklin Wilson Jr. is visiting with us this evening. Thank you very much. And Sister Gayatri, are you well? Okay, good. Okay, Reverend Franklin Wilson Jr. And they will be sharing on the respective legacies that Brahma Baba and Martin Luther King left us. Okay, Reverend Franklin Wilson Jr. is a community organizer, professional agitator. Very interesting. I want to hear more about that. Public speaker, pastor, and author. At an early age, he found purpose in becoming an advocate for education, civil rights, and neighborhood transformation. Currently, he devotes much of his time to public speaking and to supporting religious and secular community-based organizations to create flourishing neighborhoods. His desire is always to be part of a movement that inspires human rights, both here and around the world. And Sister Gayatri is one of our prize jewels right here. I remember when you actually lived here, right? When I was a new student. You were here every Sunday, though. You didn't. Okay. And I have to tell you, they're going to talk about humility tonight, but this wonderful sister always had an open door to us students, asking the most naive questions while she was touring the world and taking the Brahma Kumaris around the world with her. So welcome tonight. She has dedicated her life to exploring the spiritual dimension of personal development and growth through the studies of Raja Yoga, which has kept her in, quote, a place of profound realization of the importance and auspiciousness of time. As the Brahma Kumari's representative at the United Nations, she focuses on transformation as a spiritual phenomena. Absolutely. And she is always fascinated as she watches the spiritual phenomena awaken in students like me and other people and herself, especially when it's the consciousness is in relation to trust in a changing world. I like that sense. So without further ado, welcome both of you. And would you like to begin and tell us a little bit about being a professional agitator?
Yes, of course.
Okay, welcome.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? Of course, my name is Franklin Wilson. I'm an associate minister in Queens, New York, St. Albans Congregational Church, UCC, that's located in St. Albans community. I know that word professional agitator kind of is is kind of out there, normally sometimes the word agitation normally associates itself with the negative connotation. But I think for me, just my life and what I've kind of dealt with from a child all the way to now, it inspires me to say that. I feel that for things to actually move, it has to be agitated. For troubles, for waters to be moved, you have to trouble the water, right? I know sometimes, we operate holistically, peacefully, and that's my core process, right? Is to operate peacefully. But sometimes we have to get things done. And I feel that the only way things can be done is if you agitate it. I feel like times when you have a sore, right? And the scab is on there and you take the scab off. You may not feel you may feel something right away, but when it begins to heal, you might scratch it. It's like agitating. It's like you have to scratch it, but at least healing is happening. That's kind of how I see it. That's kind of how I see myself being a professional agitator, and being able to work in my community, be about great works in my community, and really get things done. So that I would say that is my core reason, if you will, in regards to being a professional agitator. I have two quotes I'm sorry. Yes, should I? I have two quotes that I want to start off with from Dr. King. And these two quotes really sits really heavy with me for the work that I do. So this is one of the quotes that I carried as a community organizer when I was doing community organizing work. The first one pretty much says this. It says that power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands. The second one says that the measure of a man is not how he behaves in the moments of comfort or convenience, but how he stands at times of controversy. These two quotes really is the core of what I do and why I do the work that I do. There's this response, this time when I was younger, I used to think about this. I was about 16 years old and I was living in Louisiana. Louisiana, of course, we know is a very considered somewhat very racist state. You can historically see that it can be very racist. I remember at 16, I didn't have a car, I wasn't driving, I wasn't doing anything. And I decided to go to the movies that particular night. One night, my mom could not come pick me up, so I decided to walk home afterwards. On my way walking home, I'm literally like maybe minutes away from my house. There were two cops that came by, pulled me over. I'm 16 years old, of course, I'm terrified. I don't know what to tell these cops. I don't know what to tell these individuals. The cops come to me, they pull me over and they say, where are you going, son? I said, well, I'm going home. My mother couldn't pick me up today. So I'm on my way going home. And they said, well, and I promise you, I did not have a beard or anything, right, at that time. But they said that I fit the description of a man who literally just set an apartment on fire and literally beat up a girlfriend, the person's girlfriend, beat him up. I said, well, that's not me. It can't be me. You know, I'm coming from the movies and I'm just trying to go home. Well, I mean, at the end, they stopped me, they pulled me over, they talked to me, kind of interrogated me, questioned me, and then kind of sent me on my way. But I noticed something in the midst of me having this conversation with the police officers. I told them I'm on my way home. And I would say, of course, you know, that statement to protect and serve is there. But I was like, yo, why these cops didn't take me home? You know, why is it that the cops didn't allow me to get in their car and then just kind of drove me home? You know, I ended up still walking home. Racism for me, man, it's crazy. And to this very day, I don't understand why we're still dealing with it. I don't understand why it's still presently operating in our communities in the manner in which it operates. But understanding Martin Luther King Jr. and the ways in which he lived his life and did things, now I kind of have an idea and an understanding of why that's the case, right? I know we're talking about humility. I know we're talking about a lot of things tonight. But for me, it was just the consistency of King. The mere fact that that people every single day was really like taunting him, calling his family. Literally, I got 2 kids. Both of my children are here today. I don't know what I would do if someone was taunting my family. I don't know what I would do if someone was coming and like literally was calling my phone and telling me that, oh, you're going to be killed, or we're going to put certain things online, or well, not online at that time, but put things on the media and expose you, if you will, right? I don't know what I would do, but this man was consistent. He was steadfast. And I feel like to be that, you have to have a prayer life. You have to have a direct connection with God. To do that, you have to be able to know that God is speaking to you in some capacity, to where you're saying, I can kind of, you know, literally move away from the ideas and thoughts of what other people are thinking and still just be about the purpose and be about the mission. That's what this is all about. It's about being about the mission. I feel like individually, we have the ability to change everything individually. Like, I just feel like individually, when we literally are saying to ourselves that we want to change things, we can make up in our own mind and we can change that culture. We can. I don't know why God sent me or brought me here to New York City. I don't even know. I was living in Louisiana and now I'm here in New York City. I don't understand what that was about. But I know there's a purpose. I know there's something that I need to learn. I know that there's something I need to gain. I know that there's something that I need to do that will inspire some sense of hope, because that's what my heart desires. My heart desires that I want to see hope. My heart desires that I want to see a change, when it comes down to economics, when it comes down to racism, when it comes down to unemployment, when it comes down to poverty, when it comes down to all of these different things that seems to be kind of a weight on our shoulders, what can we do individually to change those things? As a minister and preacher of the gospel, I feel like that is my platform. That is what I am to do. When I stand before the people of God, and those who actually are trying to understand this, what my character has to mimic that. It has to mimic that. I desire to see a change holistically within the society that I live, not just for myself, but also for my children and everyone else around me. I heard earlier, and this is my final point, I would say, I heard earlier the gentleman talked about, when King was killed in 1968. Well, I can remember distinctively in reading historically when that situation took place. I don't know if everybody remember the I Am a Man movement. There were two men by the name of Edgar Cole and Robert Walker who were sanitation workers. And these sanitation workers literally were killed. They were like, it was a stormy night and literally lightning, thunder. It was like a thundering and lightning that day. And they get in the back of the sanitation truck. And the guy who, literally operates the trucks, turns on the compactor and literally crushes these two people. Well, of course, it was tragic. These two men who were African-American men had families. They had families. And their families were not able to get what we consider all of what the benefits are when a man or who is working gets when they lose a life. They lose a life. Like the families were not being compensated. The family wasn't receiving monies or anything that can take care of their household, because normally the man was the person who took care of the household. Well, in that moment in time, the men who work with them said, listen, there's something has to change here. Something has to give. And these men literally came together and said, well, we need a union. We need something to take place. We need an actual union. So they came together and in them going to City Hall and having these conversations, they literally recreated a union. Now, during that time period of them trying to build this union, they went through a whole lot of stuff. I'm talking about threats on their lives, threats like just all type of stuff. But they were steadfast, same way in which King was. To make a long story short, King comes down. And he was in Chicago, Illinois at the time. He hears about this movement that's taking place. And he comes down to speak on behalf of this movement. He wasn't even supposed to be there. He wasn't even supposed to be there. I mean, divinely, he probably was. But what we see, he was in Chicago, working and dealing with the economic aspect with the slums that were happening in Chicago. He was trying to say, listen, I feel like we've dealt with the civil rights movement. We dealt with the civil rights movement, and yes, we got justice in that, but I feel that there's another type of movement that needs to occur, which needs to be economic. So he's in Chicago, this is what he was doing. Comes down and then of course he speaks, go to Mason's temples, and then he speaks, and then now he's gone. I feel like when we really start to tap into the things that actually is about making change, that agitation, when we start agitating people, that's when we know that we're doing something. It's when we know that there's a change that's getting ready to happen and take place. When we know that there's getting ready to be some type of movement that's getting ready to be birthed. When that agitation occurs. With that being said, I just wanted to say thank you. And for everybody who came out, thank you to this entire community. And I'm humbled. I'm extremely humbled, but thank you so much for this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Reverend Super Agitator, thank you for sharing your response to the call of this time.
Yes.
And now we turn to Sister Gayatri. How do you personally respond, as if I didn't know, to the call of your time? Yeah. Mm.
There's something that's called professional agitator, but there's also something that's called spiritual agitator, right? And so, in order for someone to really appreciate the spiritual response, I suppose they have to be agitated. And so today I spent the day at NYU dental school. And being there was 7 hours waiting. And then you were, you then, okay, got treated, but it was good because you got the whole job done. You were there as an emergency patient, but you ended up getting treated at last. So much for emergency. But I'm sitting there, you know, calm and cool. Okay, what will be, it will happen. And every time I'm about to say, okay, I need to go to Great Neck. I'm in Manhattan. I have to go back to Queens. Let me leave now. The guy, it seems as though he was keeping an eye on me to see if I would actually leave. And he would come over to me and say, no, 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 no. You're going to be the next. And then I would say, okay. And it happened like 3 times. But the dentist who actually took me, she said to me, she says, I saw you sitting there from this morning. And I said to them, I'm going to take her because I want to do, it was a root canal. I want to do it. And because I am fascinated by her case because my dentist had given a referral. So she took me and she says, I said, were you really fascinated? What did my dentist say that fascinated you? She said, nothing. I saw you sitting there since morning. And I just wanted to tell them I will treat you. But then that was not, I didn't realize I actually was agitated until I said the fastest way back to Queens was the subway. And I like traveling subway anyway. So myself and another sister, we came and I'm swiping my card and it's saying swipe again. I swipe again at this turnstile. I swiped again. And my card has money and it's not taking the money. So of course, someone walked up and he swiped his card. And I turned to him and that's the spiritual agitation coming out. And I said, that's my turnstile. Why are you swiping your card at my turnstile? And he swiped his card. It said swipe again and he swiped it. And he says, ma'am, go through. And I was agitated with him. I'm trying to do this and you are interfering. And I turned back. I went through and I turned back and I looked at him and he just smiled. And I was stunned. I couldn't respond. And I said, that moment of agitation, I turned around, he smiled, and then I went into this calm because I couldn't respond. I didn't know, I didn't even say thank you because I was stunned that this random act of kindness would have happened at the time I was most agitated after a hard day. So I do believe in what you said, that in order for you to really move, whether it's a spiritual movement, whether it's a movement in the elements, there needs to be an agitation that occurs first. And so that I would call it spiritual agitation. Then it's not like bad agitation. It's good agitation. Yeah, absolutely. And so I love what you said about Dr. King because it reminds me a lot about, you heard Sister Mohini talking about Brahma Baba. You heard Lloyd Casson, and I would say to you, if there's one person you should meet, is Canon Lloyd Casson. He was director of Trinity Church in Manhattan, and he was also subdean of the St. John the Divine Cathedral before he retired up in Delaware. And a tremendous person, he's in his 80s. And so he always says, I'm in the golden years of my life. And amazing person. He visited Mount Abu twice, which is where our headquarters is. And when I heard him speak, I always, like you, I always get very moved because there's something about these pastors, these reverends, when they speak, they just kind of lift you up and take you into another domain of realizing life and realizing what life is really meant for. And so he was someone that really moved me, and I became very, very interested in his life, but also I became interested through him in Dr. King's life. And coming to the United States of America and reading Dr. King's autobiography, I felt it was looking and understanding the history of the United States through the eyes of someone else rather than the history books. And that really gave me a completely different perspective on this country. But thinking tonight about legacies and about time, I feel that there's, Canon Casson mentioned a few, but I think there's a few similarities that struck me. One is Brahma Baba left the body on the 18th of January. Martin Luther King was born on the 15th of January. That's a birth date and a death date. Brahma Baba left the body in 1969, and Martin Luther King left in 1968. So that I said, wow, you know, it's like they were walking parallel paths, and maybe Gandhi somehow showed up in their lives because Brahma Baba was living in what is today called Pakistan. But in those days, it was in the 1930s when he started changing, and from being a businessman, a hardcore businessman dealing with diamonds and precious stones, jewelry in Sindh, one of the provinces now in Pakistan. He's a Sindhi by birth. And he was going through a transition. And the transition was he began to see life through spiritual lens. And looking at life through spiritual lens became very important for him in the message he felt at that time that he was being used as an instrument to give the world. So I was looking at time. When change is occurring, time supports that change, or I would call it transformation. It's even deeper than change. Time supports that transformation. And then it is as if time picks on people. You know, I'll pick on this one because this one will convey that message in the best way possible. Or I will pick on that one across in the United States because that one will convey what the world needed to hear at that moment. And so when it is time, when time is ready for change, time also spotlights the instruments that it needs for that change to happen. And I feel that for Brahma Baba in 1930s, he was going through a transition and he grappled with them. It wasn't that instantly he knew what he was supposed to do. And reading Martin Luther King, Dr. King's autobiography, he also grappled with things. He was an eloquent speaker, but the eloquence came from a lot of deep struggles that he was going through as an individual. Brahma Baba was also going through those deep struggles. So I think that we're not exempted from that. This agitation that we talked about to begin with, there's an agitation that occurs when time picks on you and say, hey, you're the instrument that's going to be used to convey a change that is fundamental to human life. And so we must allow for that too. We must allow for reflection and contemplation and all of that to happen in a natural way. We must allow for things, for ourselves to be agitated, knowing that that will take us into the depths of a realization that would be solid and would allow us to take positions like both of them took. Brahma Baba, one of the messages that he was told that had to happen was that women had to play leadership roles, especially on a spiritual path. The world needed not so much leaders, they needed mothers. They needed those who could nurture the world back, those who could love the world, those who would allow for the motherly instincts, the forgiveness, and such things to emerge in the world, because the world had become too harsh. It was all about a justice that comes from human rights, but not a justice that came from the love for the dignity and worth of the human person. And that was a distinction here. And so a mother would not just stand up for rights, but she would stand up for the worth. That child is worth it. So looking at the human rights was one thing, but what are those spiritual inalienable rights? The right to love and be loved. The right to be trusted and honored and not to be discriminated against and questioned just because you look like someone else. No. And so I feel that this was what Brahma Baba upheld. And he was working like Martin Luther King worked, with something that was called passive resistance. He didn't go out and fight the community and said, yes, we must put women first. Yes, I'm going to do this. No, that was not his strategy. His strategy was spiritual. He calls it a spiritual response, but it was like a passive resistance. But he wasn't going to bow to the demands of a community that still wanted to put women and make them second-class citizens. So he stood up for a truth. And the thing is that, okay, time is ready for change and time may be calling them, but as you said, there was a voice that was louder than time, and that was the voice of God, the voice of the Supreme. They were drawing on that strength over and over and over again, whether it was Dr. King, whether it was Gandhi, and Brahma Baba definitely drew on this power that gave him the strength to stand for that truth, to stand for that justice, to stand for the things, to uphold the dignity and worth of human people, of souls, without compromising on that. And so I wanted to share that. I think the time is now telling us this is what is required again. That the one thing is, I have a dream and I have a vision. I have a dream that no one, and this is Martin Luther King's words, no one will be treated by the color of their skin, that my children would exist in a world that they are not seen by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. We need to stand up for that today. We need to uphold the dignity and worth of our fellow human beings. Brahma Baba described that as there should not be discrimination against anyone on the basis of color, race, religion, sex, gender, whatever, but you must connect to the image and likeness of that person, the image and likeness of God. And you must uphold that, but you have to first of all do it for yourself. And so I feel that these are some of the things I wanted to bring out today, but I would leave you with one thing to think about. Louise read the quotation from Brahma Baba, and it was about time and transformation. Change happens all the time. But when we're talking about transformation, we must not confuse it with transactional. Because what has happened is that we are becoming confused with words and we're drowning in semantics. And the one thing, when Brahma Baba was called upon to blast the path, to pioneer a path that we call a spiritual path that we're all following today for inner transformation, he did not promote a transactional method for this inner transformation. So in other words, transactional would be, oh, I walk a spiritual path because I want to listen better, or I want to communicate better, or I want to get a better job, or I want to get into the school that I want to go. All of those things are good. They're very good. But if we don't go deep into the transformation of the human consciousness, the probability is we're going to sell our souls for this transaction that we're working out and calling it a spiritual path. Because ultimately, what the time was ready for a change, and Brahma Baba responded to that change. But the one lesson he's left us with is consider yourself to be a soul, but recognize that deep transformation happens in your consciousness, in your subconsciousness, that allows you to live by a truth that isn't compromised, that allow you to love your fellow human beings, that encompasses a strength that allows them to be who they are, but at the same time upholding them in a way that you don't judge them by the color of their skin or even from the religion that they're from. And the other is that you are going to be judged by others, not on the basis of what you say, but on the basis of how you make them feel when they're with you. And I think this is the call of the time for me, and it is a legacy of both these giants, and I call them spiritual giants, because Dr. King may have been seen as a social activist or an economic person, but he was profoundly spiritual. And Brahma Baba was also profoundly spiritual and stayed spiritual, but made a lot of breakthrough in the social world. And I end on this note, poverty. Baba used to always say, the kingdom of heaven is created with the pennies of the poor. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Om Shanti. Okay. Thank you both so much for showing us how our two gentlemen are responded to the call of the times. I know we're running a little late. I apologize, but we do have two young men sitting here that we've invited to ask you questions. So who would like to go first? Okay. Give us your name and who you would like to address it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Vedant, and this is an open question. Any of you two could answer, but so I'm a senior at a Quaker high school, and Quakerism is basically a religion that really focuses on inner peace. So I've been through this education for 3.5 years now, and I remember this quote from 9th grade, which was, 3 years ago now, a long time ago. And it was a quote that said, "What's essential you can't see with your eyes, but with your heart." And with my academic responsibilities coming to an end, there's a lot less work for me and therefore a lot more time. But what I've realized is what I see with my heart that's important is sort of spreading joy to others. And that's what's really important to me. So I want to focus these next 5-6 months before I go off to college, trying to become a better person and instill that joy in others. But a lot of that relates to being an agent of change and sort of starting that agitation. So as a young student, how could we face that agitation and face that conflict that comes with trying to create change and keep going at it, staying steadfast? And yeah, that's a question.
So I'll start with this. There's a scripture that I often refer to when Jesus spoke. I would say, namely, when he spoke, he said, "If you do this to the least of them, you do this unto me." In my faith and the manner in which I see the world, I often go back to that. However, I am the least of them, right? I have to see myself as the least of them. I am the person who is poor. I am the person who may not have, which in terms connects me more with them, right? Like I'm more connected with them. I don't think I never should see myself better than the next person. This is statement I used to always make, man. I used to always say this, and it's not just to say it just to, to just say it, but it's more of like, it humbles me. It keeps that thorn, I guess, in my flesh, where I often think about, like, I'm 1 foot out. I could be homeless any day, It's the mentality of knowing and that humility of saying, yo, man, I cannot think myself highly of anybody. I heard you speak when you spoke about it, and you said this purpose that I have, right? Individually, we know, like we feel it. Saying, even like my son who's 9 years old now, I took him to the African American Museum on New Year's Day, and I showed them the exhibit on Emmett Till, right? He began to ask me questions. It's like, who is Emmett Till and what's all of this about? He saw the casket and everything, right? I said, well, Emmett Till is a young man who's 14 years old who got killed for whistling at a white woman, right? And he said, that's why he got killed? It's like, yes, that's the reason why he got killed. He said, how does he look? I said, well, that's his picture, but I said, there's another picture of how he looked that his mother wanted the world to see, to showcase this injustice that has happened to her son. He said, do you want to see it? And he said, yeah. I said, are you sure? Do you want to see it? He said, yeah. I showed it to him. When I showed him the picture, I saw tears come from his eyes immediately. It felt like he wanted to cry, and it felt like he wanted to weep. In that moment, he don't know anything about Emmett Till, doesn't know anything about this man, never met him a day before in his life. He's 9 years old. Emmett Till died years ago, but just the story in itself changed the trajectory of what he now sees, who he is. His name is Justice. I named him that on purpose. And eventually, what he's been named will probably come to pass. And I get it, right? Like right now, you're at the end. It's like, yo, I'm in a Quakers school. I understand its mission, but the great mission, I feel, has already been, like we talked about earlier, has already been inserted into you. I feel like you got it before you even got here, before you was even born, and goes back to that time aspect, that it is the right time, right? When that time comes, it will ignite. That fire will come out, and you will start to see, okay, now this is what I need to do. This is what needs to happen. Yes, we are living in a time. contrary to popular opinion, you know, in whatever capacity it may be. But we are living in a time where we can identify and know that hate is amongst us, but also too, love is as well. Love is also amongst us. How often are we going to exemplify that love? And I feel like when we can do that, that's a great start, is to start with that love first and then spread it however way you want to spread it. Eventually it's contagious. Someone is going to catch on to it.
Thank you.
Well.
Thank you very much. Okay, Tara, do you have a question? And then I think there'll just be the two questions. Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tarek. I graduated from high school last year, and I have a question to Sister Gayatri, and it is, Dr. King stayed committed to nonviolence even when faced with violence. How can meditation and soul awareness, as taught by the Brahma Kumari's practices, help us practice nonviolence in our lives?
It has. The first thing that I have to understand is, where does nonviolence live? And nonviolence is actually, it lives in the authentic being, the true being. And so if I accept that a part of me is true and authentic, by nature, in a natural way of being, I will be nonviolent. So in both Brahma Baba's life, when he was dealing with the rage of his community in Hyderabad and Karachi, or Dr. King here in the United States, the reason that they remained nonviolent, because deep in their souls, they knew that they were instruments for something bigger, better, and something more elevated. And so they knew that the success of whatever they were being used as an instrument for was connected with what is innate in them, which was intrinsic, and that was nonviolence and peace. Because if they violated that peace and nonviolence that was latent within them, they tampered with the truth. And it wasn't going to lead them to a success. So truth, nonviolence, and peace were the three things that were very essential to bring about a sustainable justice for people. And they did that. And I feel that that is something we need to really be clear about when we are talking about nonviolence. Violence is something that happens when I forget that the original religion of the being that is authentic is nonviolent and peace. So the two have got to go together, nonviolence and peace. Peace cannot come about with violence. You have to have nonviolence in order for peace to be reestablished, or for me even to be a peaceful person.
Thank you, Sister Gayatri, and thank you, gentlemen, for your questions. I just want to say that we have two things coming up, both brief. We're going to ask Sister Carmen to do a meditative commentary, but then afterwards we have a tradition here. You'll be coming up for a little bit of Toli, we call it, which is a blessing and a blessing card. So we hope you can stay. If you have to leave, we understand. I wish I could say it was a typo on the memo that we're ending at 8:30, but that's about when we'll be through. Okay.
Louise,
Sister
just one thing
Carmen?
for Sedan.
Sure.
I just wanted to say to you, the Quakers would have taught you their silence. You take that with you, because in that silence lives your joy.
Beautiful. Thank you. Sister Carmen, would you do us the honor of a meditative commentary? Thank you. This is my wonderful angel, on Thursdays and Sundays. This is Corbin.
Om Shanti. So we're going to take the next few minutes just to reflect a bit on what we heard from Sister Gayatri and from Reverend Wilson. What we heard about the life and legacy of two gentlemen, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and Brahma Baba. And the legacy that they left was really to inspire us, to motivate us, to look at ourselves and to see, what is it that I have to do now? Martin Luther King Jr. and Brahma Baba, they knew that they themselves were not able or cannot by themselves do the work that needs to be done, the change that needs to come about in the world at this time. So they were just being instruments to inspire us to take the baton and to run the race. So what is it that I have to do to live the inspiration I received from them both? So just take a deep breath and just allow yourself to relax. Just move beyond the noises, the confusion, the complexities of the world outside, even of what's maybe going on inside your own mind right now. Move beyond that and allow the self to come to a place of deep silence. It's quiet. Free from confusion. It's peaceful. And experience that sense of deep silence, its stillness within the being. This is a space, I think, that both Martin Luther King and Brahma Baba entered, and the space from which they received their inspirations in order to live the way they lived, in order to teach us what they discovered. It's within that space of silence that we can connect with that truth, the authenticity of the being. It's in that space of silence that we can experience the love that is important for us to connect with. To begin the change, we need to begin within our own selves. And to be inspired to bring about the change outside of ourselves. It allows us to respect and have deep regard and value for each other. It's in that space of silence truth resides. True justice, from which that justice can emerge. I am that being that lives in this space, that being of peace and nonviolence, that being of love, that being of dignity, that being of respect. It's from this space that I can look out into the world and see other human beings as I see myself, and see them as they really are, God's children, were created in the image and likeness of God. And so I sit here for just another moment and allow that beautiful feeling of love and peace to emerge. And I can sit here, and as those feelings emerge, I allow them to radiate out into the world, touching the hearts of everyone, those I see and those I don't, knowing that every soul out there is my brother, my sister, all children of God, all deserving of love and respect, all deserving to be valued. And now I allow myself to come back to the realization that I'm sitting in this room with my brothers and my sisters, and I can look around at each one, knowing no one is a stranger. Each one belongs. Each one is valued. And it's my responsibility to begin to share this experience with myself, with others, with the world. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. What a beautiful evening. I want to thank the Reverend. Thank you, Sister Gayatri. Beautiful job, guys. Thank you all for coming. We're going to do Toli and Blessing. And if you haven't already met Sister Anjani, who is the coordinator of Harmony House, and she will be doing our session next week. So you're all welcome to come. If you would like to be on our email list after you receive your Toli and Blessing, we'll be happy to add you, and we can send you every week flyers so you can see what's going on here. And you may want to brave the cold again before the spring, okay? Thank you for coming. Thank you, Zoom people. Om Shanti.
Sing We Shall Overcome with me, please. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Shanti dispels the